Hello and welcome. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to begin a new diplomatic power push for India starting tomorrow. He's going to be visiting 5 countries in 6 days, as is his want. Diplomacy is one of the big important things that the Prime Minister has been focusing on since coming to power in 2014. But this particular trip, Sanjeev Singh here is from the Times of India, is going to discuss and tell us why this sudden whirlwind to us, Sanjeev, and then if you can take us through quickly the stops that he's going to make over the next 5 days.
See, it's a 6-day trip that will be starting, but the question that everyone would want to answers for is the fact that PM Modi has made so many trips. I mean, what is so different about this trip that is important for the country and for India as such?
So, Sanjeev, if I can just quickly show those who are watching, this is the itinerary of the Prime Minister over the next 6 days. He's going to start off from Delhi, go off to Herat in Afghanistan, then he's going to go to Qatar, then Geneva, Washington and Mexico City. The first stop, of course, is in Herat, and that's an important one because he's going to be inaugurating the Salma Dam, which is the single biggest investment India has made in the entire region. This is a dam which is costing India $275 million. It's going to create 42 megawatts of electricity for the region around Herat, and it's going to provide irrigation for about 72,000 hectares. Now the thing is that Afghanistan, of course, is one of the is a major partner for India. It's got huge geostrategic implications, of course. It's one country which India has been paying around $2 billion in aid. India is the 6th biggest donor to Afghanistan, and this is just one of the major infrastructural things that India is developing in Afghanistan.
And India has been very consistent as far as Afghanistan is concerned. I mean, the last time Prime Minister went, he had actually inaugurated the Afghanistan Parliament, if you remember, and that is the day when he also, created ripples in the diplomatic world when he decided to visit Pakistan that time.
Oh, absolutely. This time, of course, it's important to emphasize that the Salma Dam in Herat is not the only major infrastructural developmental assistance that India is providing. India is also providing the power line from Pule Khumri to Kabul, which is costing about $42 million. And if I can draw up the one more project that India is working on, and that, of course, is the Route 606, which is from Delaran to Zaran, another $135 million, along with Afghanistan, the parliament in Kabul as well. Kabul is a very major strategic partner for India, and that's why this trip is particularly important. And from here, of course, he's going to go to Qatar.
Yeah, so that is another important destination because I think this is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister in 8 years. The last was Manmohan Singh. He had gone in 2008. And also the fact that India does a lot of business with Qatar, especially if we talk about hydrocarbons.
That's right.
What is on the agenda as far as Qatar is concerned?
So, why this particular trip is important is we must see it in the context of the fact that the Prime Minister has recently been to Saudi Arabia, he's recently been to UAE, and this is the continuation of India's power push as far as the Middle East and the Gulf region is concerned. With Qatar, of course, the Emir of Qatar was in India in 2015, so Prime Minister Modi is repaying that visit, number one. Number two, I think, as you rightly pointed out, this country is the single largest source for India's gas imports. With LNG, for example, 65% of India's LNG, it comes from Qatar, and the Prime Minister, and this is going to be on the agenda. Also security. India has not been very happy with the fact, I think, that the Afghan Taliban has recently opened up an office in Qatar. So that's also on the agenda. A number of bilateral agreements are going to be signed. Something like 65,000 Indians are currently...
650,000.
650,000, I beg your pardon, are currently working in Qatar. So this is, so the Prime Minister will actually be going to a workers' camp as well.
Also because, the 2022 Football World Cup is going to be held in Qatar. So that's a lot of remittances come to India from that place. So that is why that workers' meet is also going to be important.
Yeah. The next stop from Qatar is an interesting one, which is in Geneva in Switzerland. Now, Switzerland was not on the original itinerary when it was chalked out earlier. Both Switzerland and Mexico have been added to this to this Six Nations tour, or this over 6 days. most recent date? Sanjeev, you can tell us a little bit more about it.
The basic reason why we've seen the addition of Switzerland and Mexico is, of course, with our nuclear concerns and the fact that India needs an entry into the elite group of nuclear suppliers. Nalin, what can we expect as far as the NSG is concerned for India, and how is it important? Why was it so important that actually Prime Minister had to put this into the itinerary?
So the important point to remember is that India has recently put in an application to join the Nuclear Suppliers Group. That was submitted on the 12th of May, and next month, this month in June, on the 22nd and 24th of June in Seoul, is going to be the plenary session of the NSG, which is going to decide what to do with India's application. But prior to that, on the 9th of June is an extraordinary plenary session of the NSG, where they will do a vetting process of the applicants. And of course, Pakistan has also filed an application to the NSG a week after we did. Now the issue that's happening is that China is blocking our entry into the NSG, and these two countries, Switzerland and Mexico, have serious concerns about India on issues around proliferation. Even in 2008, Sanjeev, when the Indo-US nuclear deal was signed, and and India managed to get an exemption from the NSG, even at that time, Mexico and Switzerland had serious concerns, which were only sorted out. Now again, both these countries have concerns about India's application to join the NSG, and that's why the Prime Minister is personally leading a diplomatic push to try and convince the heads of state on both sides. So he's going to be meeting the Swiss President Johann Schneider-Ammann in Geneva, and after that, and when he goes to the US, on the way back he's going to stop in Mexico City as well for a meeting with the head of state there as well, to try and convince them personally to back India's application to the NSG.
Yeah, I think this is also to make sure that, because Pakistan's application has also come and they are getting tacit support from Pakistan, so that also has to be countered to some extent while India pushes its case forward.
Yeah. After the Geneva stopover, of course, the Prime Minister is going to be off to the United States, and this, of course, is the Prime Minister's fourth visit to the United States. He's going to be meeting President Obama he's going to be meeting him in the Oval Office, but also will be addressing importantly the US Congress, and that makes him the sixth Indian Prime Minister to do so. Jawaharlal Nehru, of course, did it all those years ago. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has also addressed the US Congress. So this is, in a sense, I think, Sanjeev, 4 times it kind of shows the closeness of the Washington-Delhi relationship over the past 2 years.
The deepening of the ties, and especially, how Prime Minister Modi himself has taken the initiative to try and bring together these two countries and take the process of, collaboration further in various other fields. We've seen, India and US now collaborating not just on the economy but also geostrategically, and even the defense ties. We've seen a lot of, bilateral defense exercises also taking place.
Yeah. So very quickly, if we can quickly wind back, if I can show these slides again, it's going to be 5 countries in 6 days, starting off tomorrow. First stop, Herat, where the inauguration of the Selma Dam. That is the single biggest infrastructural project of assistance that India is developing in the region, and it's also important because it is proof of the fact that India can deliver as far as developmental assistance is concerned. So in that sense, the strategic importance is very, very important.
But didn't this project get delayed a lot?
It did, Sanjeev. It was supposed to have ended in 2012. Originally, the cost was about $75 million, and then it was delayed partly for 2 reasons. Partly because of security concerns. In 2013, there was an attempt by the Taliban to blow up the dam, number one. In fact, at one point, Indian engineers had to be flown in to the site on helicopters because of security concerns. And all the material had to be brought in from Central Asia and from Iran. So there are serious security issues here, and the cost also went up. But it's proof eventually of India's track record for delivering.
Also, yes.
Because there are lots of question marks around that. So in that sense, this is an important visit. Geneva for the NSG. Washington, of course, because of the Indo-US strategic relationship, and Mexico again to push the NSG relationship, or to push the case for India's entry into the NSG. And on that note, we will take a break. Keep watching the Times of India for more updates.